Good afternoon, guys. I have discussion B for you this afternoon. For this afternoon B show, we are discussing multi-generational caregiving. Okay. And the other title for this one is a policy agenda for an aging world. Okay, so here we go with the presentation that I made for you. Sit back and enjoy, please. And remember, if there's anything that someone wants to ask about shows I've done, give me ideas for other shows, comment on ones that I'm doing, leave it in the chat below for me, and I will see what I can do about getting you answered, getting you shows that you want on. I'm pretty flexible about that thing. So with that being said, let's go with B this afternoon. Ready? The world is aging faster than its policies, financing models, and care infrastructures can adapt. Multi-generational caregiving, once a private family responsibility, has become a global public policy failure. The true cost is not only borne by families, it is absorbed by national economies, labor markets, and future generations whose opportunities are constrained by the absence of coherent long-term care strategy. This is not a social issue, it is a structural one. The demographic comparison governments can no longer ignore. By 2050, the proportion of adults over 65 will double in many regions, while fertility rates continue to fall. The dependency ratio is collapsing. In countries like Japan, Italy, and South Korea, there are already more elders than children. In rapidly aging middle income nations, Brazil, China, Thailand, these demographic shift is happening without the wealth base that historically supported long-term care systems. It is happening without the wealth base that historically supported long-term care systems. The policy implications is clear. Every country is becoming a long-term care country, whether it is ready or not. The economic drag of unpaid caregiving. Unpaid caregiving is now one of the largest shadow economies in the world. It reduces labor force participation, suppresses GDP growth, and accelerates gender inequity. The World Bank estimates trillions in lost productivity annually due to informal caregiving, a failure that rises as dementia prevalence increases and life expectancy extends. The global policy failure is twofold. Caregiving is treated as a private obligation rather than a public good. Second one, long-term care financing is fragmented, regressive, and insufficient. Governments are relying on families to absorb costs that should be distributed across society. The global caregiving burden is structurally gendered. Across continents, women provide 60 to 80% of unpaid care. They exit the workforce earlier, return later, and earn less across their lifetime. This is not a cultural inevitability, it is a policy choice. Countries without paid family caregiving leave, caregiver tax credits, or pension protections effectively legislate gender inequity into their aging systems. A global caregiving agenda must explicitly address gender not as a social narrative, but as a core economic variable. The missing infrastructure, what every nation needs, but few have. A functional long term care system requires 6 pillars. Most countries have one or two, almost none have all 6. Universal long term care coverage, pooled risk, predictable financing, and equitable access. Paid family caregiving leave, preventing workforce attrition, and stabilizing household income. Direct care workforce investment, wages, training, immigration pathways, and retention strategies. Home and community based services expansion, shifting care from institutions to home where families prefer to age. Caregiver tax credits and pension protections, recognizing caregiving as an economically valuable labor. National dementia strategies, integrating diagnostics, care, navigation, and long-term support. These are not aspirational reforms. They are minimum requirements for demographic survival. The global inequity problem, aging without infrastructure. High income countries face affordability crises. Middle income countries face access crises. Low-income countries face absence of formal care entirely. The result is a global caregiving landscape defined by inequity. Wealthy families can purchase care. Poor families sacrifice education, employment, and health. Urban regions have fragmented services. Rural regions have none. Migrant workers fill care gaps in wealthy nations while leaving care gaps in their home countries. A global caregiving policy must confront this inequity directly through cross national financing, workforce mobility agreements, and shared aging research. The multi generational impact, caregiving as a detriment of failure, of future workforce stability. Children in caregiving households experience educational interruptions, stress, exposure, and reduced economic mobility. This is not anecdotal, it is measurable. Countries that fail to support caregivers today will face less stable, less skilled workforce tomorrow. Caregiving is not only a health policy issue, it is a human capital policy issue, a global policy blueprint for the next decade to stabilize families and economies. Nations must adopt coordinated reforms, national long term care insurance models, modeled after Japan, Germany, and South Korea, international caregiving workforce compacts to manage migration ethically and sustainably. Global dementia research collaboration to accelerate diagnostics and therapeutics across border agency across border aging policy councils to harmonize standards and share innovations, public health literacy campaigns to prepare families for aging trajectories, national caregiver registries and certification pathways to professionalize and stabilize the workforce. These reforms are not optional, they are the scaffolding required for societies that want to remain economically viable as their population ages or age. The truth policymakers must confront. Families cannot continue to serve as the world's long term care system. The demographic math has broken. The economic burden is unsustainable, and the emotional toll is immeasurable. The true cost of global multi-generational caregiving is the erosion of economic stability, gender equality, and future workforce capacity. The solution is not more heroic families, it is policy, financing, and infrastructure built for the century we are actually living in. Okay, guys, here's the last half of B. This second half is a speech that I made for you. So let's dig into the speech. We meet at a moment when the world is aging faster than our systems, our financing models, and our political imagination. Every nation represented here, regardless of income level, geography, or culture, is confronting the same reality. Multi generational caregiving has become one of the defining global health challenges of the 21st century, and yet caregiving remains largely invisible. Our policy frameworks, families are absorbing responsibilities that belong to health health systems. Women are absorbing costs that belong to national budgets, and children are absorbing stress that belongs to none of them. This is not a private burden, it is a public infrastructure failure. The demographic shift that demands political courage. By 2050, 1 in 6 people worldwide will be over 65. In many nations, the ratio of working age adults to elders is collapsing. The math is simple. No country can sustain its economic future without a functional long term care system. This is not a matter of culture or tradition, it is a matter of structural capacity. The economic cost of unpaid caregiving. Across continents, unpaid caregiving has become one of the largest shadow economies in the world. It pulls millions out of the workforce, suppresses GDP growth, and accelerates gender inequity. The global economy is losing trillions in productivity because we have not built the systems required for people to age safely, affordably, and with dignity. When governments fail to invest in long term care, families pay instead with wages, with health, and with their futures. The gendered architecture of global caregiving. We must name What is true? Caregiving is structurally gendered. Women provide the majority of unpaid care, often at the expense of education, employment, and lifestyle or earnings. This is not a cultural inevitability, it is a policy choice. If we want gender equity, we must build caregiving equity, the missing infrastructure, what every nation needs. A resilient long term care system requires 6 pillars. The most countries have one or two, almost none have all 6. Universal long term care coverage, unpaid family caregiving leave, investment in direct care workforce, expansion of home and community based services, caregiving, caregiver tax credits, and pension protections, national dementia strategies. These are not luxuries, they are the minimum requirements for demographic survival. The global inequity problem. High income nations face affordability crises. Middle income nations face access crises. Low income nations face the absence of formal care entirely, and across all regions, rural communities are aging without infrastructure. We must confront this inequity directly through cross national financing, workforce mobility agreements, and shared aging research. The multi generational impact, caregiving as a detriment of future workforce stability. Children growing up in caregiving households experience stress, educational interruptions, and reduced economic mobility. This is not anecdotal, it is measurable. Caregiving is not the only health policy issue, it is a human capital policy issue, a global blueprint for coordinated action. Today, I urge this body to commit to a shared global caregiving agenda, national long term care insurance models adopted to regional contexts, international caregiver workforce compacts to manage migration efficacy or ethically, global dementia research collaboration to accelerate diagnostics and therapeutics, cross-border aging policy councils to harmonize standards, public health literacy campaigns to prepare families for aging trajectories, caregiver training and certification pathways to stabilize the workforce. These reforms are not optional, they are essential. The call to action: ministers of the world. Ministers, the world is watching now, watching how we respond to the greatest demographic transformation in human history. Families cannot continue to serve as the world's long-term care system. The burden is too heavy. With the math is too broken and the consequences are too great. We must build the policies, financing, and infrastructure that aging populations require. Not in 20 years, but now. Caregiving is the most universal human act. It deserves universal policy supports. Let us commit together to a future where aging is not a crisis borne by families, but a shared responsibility carried by nations. Thank you. All right, guys. That is B for you. I'll be back on after a little short break. Until then, Gator Wellness. Take care, folks.